Monday's lone Premier League match saw Manchester City roll Burnley 5-0 the final score. Burnley couldn't fill out their bench thanks to players on expiring contracts. The result means City remain comfortably in second place. Also means Liverpool won't be able to clinch on Wednesday when they host Crystal Palace. Craig Burley, Ian Darke join us for more. Craig, I'll start with you. City's depth on full display in this one. 8 changes from the team we saw against Arsenal. Didn't seem to make much of a difference.
No, Sebi, and I know I didn't sit down on the sofa when this game started and thought that City were going to slip up or it was going to be much of a contest. Even with Burnley with the full team, it is usually going to be a struggle. But for all the reasons you mentioned, it was pretty simple. Look, one of the things I always say when I talk about Manchester City and I see a Manchester City team sheet coming out, I look at the bench. And I've always said they've got a bench that would walk into, 90 to 95% of the teams in the Premier League, if not other leagues around Europe. So it is a squad that's had its problems this year. But for them, this pandemic and this shutdown has allowed some of the injured players to get fit. We've seen Leroy Sané back, although he's not going to be at the club for too long, you'd imagine. We've seen Aymeric Laporte back, although he was on the bench today. So he's able to rotate it. And no surprise, bring in quality and even bring in some quality youngsters like Phil Foden.
Ian, did we see the best of City or the worst of Burnley today?
I think Burnley have got nothing much to play for, really. You could say they could go for a top half finish, but they're kind of marooned in the middle of the table. The interesting thing, just to underline Craig's point, is that before this restart of the season, Manchester City didn't bother with any friendlies because I think they thought, well, there's not any opposition, really, that could be better than having an in-house training game between our whole squad. So that's what they did, and they've come out flying, really. And remember, their big aim this season now is to win what for them is really the holy grail, to win the Champions League, and they're already ahead against Real Madrid. That tie will resume 6 months after it started in August.
Depending, Craig, on which odds we look at, City are the Champions League favorites, or at least right there at the top of the list. Did they look like it today?
I don't think you can judge them on this game, to be quite frank. But with a fully fit squad and dependent on team selection, they're going to be up there. But you have to look at Bayern Munich. You have to look at Real Madrid, who've started back flying. I suppose even Barcelona as well. But they're definitely up there. I mean, there's going to be an opportunity for them. It's a knockout. If they get through this second leg that Ian talked about, that's been so long apart, then obviously the format for the Champions League is going to be different. It's not going to be played home and away. It's going to be played over one leg, I believe. So it's just going to become a knockout competition until the final. So they've got as good a chance as any because they've got a bunch of fit players. But he's had those before, hasn't he? He had them at he had a fit squad last year. He had fit players at Bayern Munich. But since his Barcelona days, he's not been able to get the two clubs that I mentioned over the line in that particular competition.
Ian, we've seen City now twice since the restart. Have you been impressed? Do you think this is the year they can finally break through?
Interesting thing is with Manchester City, the word going around in English football circles was that they weren't going to be as up to speed as some of the other clubs. Well, I think that was a smokescreen because they've come out playing really well, as if nothing really had happened to them and as if the whole lockdown period hadn't happened. They're playing very well. I think they've got as good a chance as anybody. I wouldn't put it any stronger than that in the Champions League because Bayern Munich, especially to me, look a very, very good team at the moment. And I think I'd make them narrow favourites. But it's all speculation. I'll tell you something. I wonder whether this August competition where people are playing one-offs like a little mini tournament, whether that might catch on as an idea, as a climax to the Champions League for future years. You wouldn't rule it out, would you?
Ian, we like to talk a lot about City's depth. No better example of that than Phil Foden. Has a couple goals in the match today.
Yeah, I think he's a terrific player. I really do. And I don't think, honestly, I mean, one hesitates to criticise a coach as brilliant as Pep Guardiola, but I'd like to have seen him have more starts. I think he's only started about 8 Premier League games, including tonight. I mean, you look at that compared to Jadon Sancho, who left Manchester City for Borussia Dortmund to take his chance in Germany, become a big star. He's in the England team, while Foden has been on the back burner. But I think this boy can really play. I think he should be in the England squad right now. I think he will be in the European Championship squad next year. And the interesting thing is David Silva is leaving Manchester City, and this is the acid test now. Pep Guardiola's been talking this boy up right the way through. Now he's got to put him in the team. If they go out and buy somebody to replace David Silva, what does that mean for Foden? So I really hope he is now fast-tracked into the team for next season.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.